Hi, Peter Boolkah here, and welcome to today's edition of The Transition Guy. Now, joining me is Partaker, who is CEO, co-founder of a burrito chain called Chilango's. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you. Yeah, excited to be here.
Eric's also a speaker at the summit, so it's all good.
Yeah, really good. It's fantastic to get in front of entrepreneurs, and especially those in the market that Chilango's in that are trying to scale up, and particularly was exciting to talk about because it's tough being an entrepreneur, right? It's tough. It's you got to find cash. It's tough on you, mentally, and what an amazing opportunity, because I was able to share kind of my story in both of those arenas. Both raising the funds and how do you kind of maintain your sanity in it all.
So tell us about your journey.
Yeah, great. So. So I guess the humor in it all is that had you told me 20 years ago that I would be at a conference, talking about my Mexican restaurant chain, crowdfunding, peak performance, living in London, I would have been like, what? It would have been definitely a laugh fest. So half American, half Norwegian. I grew up for the most part in Chicago, studied finance, was a consultant with McKinsey and Company for a while, did a variety of industries, as you do, picking up good generalist grounding or background. Moved over to Oslo, Norway, with McKinsey, transferred over there after starting in the Chicago office. And that's like when the light bulb first went off, because I was out with some colleagues and we were having some Mexican food in Oslo, and they all thought that the Mexican food was great. And growing up in Chicago, which is home to the second largest population of Mexicans in the US, I thought to myself, wow, this food's really bad. And so at that point I thought, there's an idea there. Left McKinsey, ran a nonprofit in Norway for a while, and then came down to London, joined Skype in its very early days. We were about 30 people or so in an office in Soho, and helped build that up to its multi-billion-dollar exit to eBay. And then at that point I thought, I really miss Mexican food. I can't find it anywhere in London. Let's start a Mexican restaurant business. And I did that together with my colleague at the time at Skype, Daniel Houghton. So we started it together. So yeah, and here we are today.
But here we are today is, it hasn't been that straightforward though, has it?
No, it's the whole, it's literally the whole 10-year overnight success story. So we have 11 restaurants today. Restaurants are producing some great numbers, like-for-like sales across the group, which is a measure of true kind of restaurant health from a sales point of view, is positive. Nearly double-digit positive, which is great, especially
in restaurant.
Yeah, and in this climate as well. And on a EBITDA basis, the restaurants are generating 20% EBITDAs again, which is very healthy. You would know. We have a shared background in that.
We do, and do you know what? That reminds me of the early days of McDonald's.
Yeah.
That's what we were doing back then, and that was considered to be really good.
Yeah, exactly. So, so that's doing well, but after 11 years of making quite a lot of mistakes, barely surviving many of them. And I think, to get to the stage of scaling up as a company, there really is like a Darwinian process to it. There's a bit of luck, there's a bit of skill, and through natural selection, the survivors emerge. And while the experience at Skype was kind of, romantic and amazing in that it just was this, incredible journey, that's not real normal business. People get distracted by it. The real normal business is that, what does it take to create $1 billion company? Well, it takes like 20, 25 years. That's the reality. So we're in it for the long haul. Got a fantastic investor base behind us, a lot of great advisors. It's one step, one restaurant at a time right now.
Now, what interests me is your funding.
Yeah.
Talk to us about how you funded it, because a lot of people would go to your archetypical traditional lenders.
Yeah, absolutely. And we, very early on, we experienced something quite magical with Chilango. So Skype, I've got to wind back a little bit. Skype succeeded where voice over IP hadn't for 10 years because they got two things really, really right, which we then applied to Chilango. And then we even applied that an aspect of the fundraising as well. But I'll start with the core tenets, and that was the product quality. Skype just worked really well. And then it was wrapped up in a brand that people loved. So we thought, we're really going to focus on product quality, but what is, let's get specific. What's the number one thing that people want when it comes to the food? And ultimately, it's about great flavors. That's what they want. So we really zeroed in on flavor. And then, the brand needed an emotive brand that would catch people's eyes. And the one-word distillation of our brand is vibrancy. It's supposed to make you feel, happier than when you walked in. Brightens up your day. That, as a byproduct of doing that, we got a lot of fanfare and a lot of people queuing out the doors very early on, and that also led to quite a few people saying, "Hey, can I invest in the company?" So it wasn't intended, really. It just kind of happened, and we thought, well, yeah, why not? If the person's a qualified investor, why not take investment for them? So 80% of the funds that we've raised to date have come from our guests and fans. So it's with huge pride that I can say that Chilango is literally powered by the people. And yeah, so and I should add that the crowdfunding has morphed as the industry has morphed. So it started with people approaching us directly. Then and this is well before crowdfunding platforms existed. Then once the platforms were there, we did a couple of deals with Crowdcube, a couple of campaigns with them. Multi-million pound raises, and then once the brand was strong enough, so in this last round that we did, which just ended, we actually built our own crowdfunding platform and launched that direct to the public ourselves, Burrito Bond 2, and that raised just under $5 million or 3.8 million pounds. So yeah, it's been And that's the other connection, by the way, to Skype. So Skype democratized, telephony, and crowdfunding is sort of democratizing finance. So it's a very exciting way to fund a business.
So a nice, new, natural progression.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you get with crowdfunding is that it's not just the cash you seek, but you're also getting a sales force, because we have 2,500 people who are now investors in Chilango. And where do you think they're going to recommend to go to lunch when they're asked during the day by any of their colleagues? So yeah, so it's worked really well.
If their colleagues don't go there, they'll make sure they go there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, so very, very exciting.
And I suppose that paves the way for other entrepreneurs out there, especially loads of people out there. Banks don't necessarily understand business models well.
Yeah.
Or banks are not necessarily what I would say risk takers. A lot of banks out there are quite risk averse in terms of if it doesn't meet their strict guidelines, or it falls outside their parameters,
then you have no chance.
Then you have absolutely no chance. Where when you start going down that crowdfunding route, because you can have loads of little people investing, loads of small micro loans, micro investments should we call them, it allows people to take a punt.
Yeah, exactly.
If they trust the brand, and if they're excited by it.
And the market's developed so much so that it's no longer just a way to get a bit of cash to start a business. It's also a way to scale up a business.
I think it's most importantly, it's a great way to scale up a business.
You're powered by the very people that are the lifeblood of your business. And on that note, just to speak in terms of some amounts, and this isn't all associated with Chilango, but just in terms of all of my entrepreneurial endeavors. To date, I've raised 30 million pounds, or $40 million through crowdfunding. So that those kind of sums are well beyond what people associate with crowdfunding's potential. So we're in a different era now in terms of what's
possible. And can you imagine going to the bank for that? They want your house, they want your soul.
Oh yeah, you'd have no chance.
They want your kids, they want your family.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I mean, that's some good advice regarding the funding side. How did you cope as an individual Because actually where you are today and where you were when you first started, and as you mentioned before, there's a lot of trauma when you're a CEO, especially when you're growing your business. I mean, I can't really put it any nicer that you have to deal with shit all the time at the end of the day, and that's the truth.
Yeah.
And it's a psychological burden. How did you cope with that?
Yeah, so first of all, an interesting fact that I recently learned. So when studying elite, performers, and if they're looking at the energy expenditure of, say, athletes, top performing athletes, versus soldiers in the military, the CEO role, although the energy, the ways in which the energy is expended is different. It's like an energy equivalent to that. So what that means is, well, let me put it this way. So how many professional athletes do you think are at the top of their game and, say, not minding their health, getting 5 to 6 hours of sleep per night, and not doing anything to kind of like keep all the mental game in check?
How many of them, the ones that suck?
Yeah, exactly. Now, let's take that. So we know the energy requirement to be CEO is on par with them, right? And we know that they manage their energy very, very differently than all the hype around hustle and just burn both ends of the candle, and so the typical I think the media right now, a lot of some of our social media icons, they're promoting a way of life that is just fundamentally mismatched with how you need to be. Yeah, you will set yourself up for death, or for really poor performance at some point. So as I started to get cued into this because of getting exhausted and realizing that, wow, it's hard to raise a family, build a business, find all the funding. And so I became very, very obsessed with wanting to make sure that culturally in Chilango, our people were kind of performing at their best. Or more philosophically, Abraham Maslow, that our people were realizing their fullest potential.
Yeah.
So on that note, we've trained our staff. We have staff training programs in nutrition, willpower, habit formation, productivity, all of these things that help you succeed. They're things that have helped me succeed. And I know that they'll help our teams as well. And they're responding, very well to that. So kind of optimizing, I guess, my life and my routines, how I manage my energy, my sleep, how do I stay completely focused and then, able to shut off and spend time with the family? How do I kind of live and run the company as a professional athlete would do? That's been the secret to kind of crossing the chasm from founder to CEO.
And actually maintaining performance as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's, you can't just, get to, a lot of founders can write CEO and, or just get to that level, but, can you maintain the role?
Well, a lot of people out there, they turn to sort of the drink and bad eating as a coping mechanism for all the stress, etc., not realizing actually that if they lived their life more cleanly, they wouldn't have half the problems they have in the first place. Now, you do work around this, don't you?
Yeah, and that's a really good point that you make. So I'll go back to the professional athlete. How many great professional athletes who are expending the same energy as a CEO are, not looking after themselves, drinking, going out partying, they don't exist,
no,
right?
They don't.
Or if they do, they have short careers.
And probably one of my favourite examples of this is Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah.
At the age of 35, I mean, he was sold for a ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah.
And if you look at him, I mean, he is so disciplined. You got it. He's a machine.
You got it. And that's there's a way to do all of that and have life feel actually even better than constantly seeking to numb yourself with whether it's booze or whatever else. I mean, I don't drink. I look after my sleep, and life feels great. Of course, you can do all of that, but do it in moderation, as well. If you still want to go out and have a good time. So
I think the word is discipline.
Yeah.
If you take your top people, they're disciplined. in terms of athletes, top business performers, their discipline.
And discipline equals, discipline creates freedom. And one of the things that I'm seeking, to do through my site at ericpartaker.com is trying to take what I've learned over the last 20 years and make the entrepreneurial journey for founders, or CEOs, a bit easier. So trying to share my expertise on crowdfunding, because it is a go-to alternative way to finance your business. You can finance your business, with your guests and fans and achieve quite large sums. And then the other thing that I'm doing is helping coach other founders and CEOs and leadership teams and even coaches, people looking to impact other large groups in all of the peak performance stuff. So essentially helping them close the gap between who they are and who they're capable of being. Because all like the anxiety, discomfort, frustration, our disappointment lives in that gap.
So if someone's interested in what you're saying and they really want to explore more with you, how do they do that?
Well, just get in touch. Just go to the website ericpartaker.com. Get in touch. We'll have a chat, see if it's a good fit. If it's a good fit, what I can bring to the table is a collection of some world-class work experiences in the form of McKinsey, Skype and Chilango, where I've been recognized as one of the top 30 entrepreneurs in the country, and then just last month as CEO of the year, together with some cutting-edge research. So I pull in some academic stuff from the High Performance Institute, where I'm certified as a coach, and also some things from a coaching certification and apprenticeship that I did with Professor BJ Fogg, who runs Stanford University's Behavior Design Lab. So all of that I use to kind of help optimize the journey and the results for fellow entrepreneurs, leaders, or coaches.
Well, thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been a pleasure having you, Eric. Now, if anything that we've talked about today in terms of crowdfunding, performance, etc. resonates with you and you want to explore that further, head over to boolkah.com and get in touch. And remember, failing to learn is learning to fail.